the goal really is for you to share your thoughts on the training itself and how that enables you as a teacher to teach reading.
Okay.
And you kind of what third graders need, and teachers need to be teaching in third grade and now pre-K. So
Right.
that's a wonderful place to be. Right. So, all right. Well, Carrie, thank you for meeting with us today. I know you attended the Reading 360 training, and it was so exciting for everybody that attended, and you came to me afterward and had such ahas that you wanted to share, and I was
Right.
so happy to hear your perspective on it. So just talk with us about the training, the content specifically, and how it grew you as a teacher.
So coming from third grade, like starting in third grade, we focused less on the phonics and more on the content and the comprehension of the material. But a lot of our students were coming in without that foundational basis and weren't able to read. And you know, as a third grade teacher, it's hard to go back and remember what foundational skills they really need in order to comprehend the content. And so the training was really good about being explicit of teaching the sounds first. And that was really important for me to understand that it's not so much about recognizing the letters, but knowing what sounds that they make. And not only that, but breaking it down with the hand motions as well and being explicit in the instruction of it, being direct and making sure that it was all aligned to our content. Really helped with that foundation. One of the other things was that it was important to not rely so much on context clues, because that is what I found myself doing in the upper grades. Well, like what do you see going on around it? Use some of the other context clues from the sentence. And we found that that doesn't necessarily work, especially as they get older. You can't rely on your context clues to figure out an unknown word, because there's a lot that can fit in there that are not the correct word. So having that foundational skill as far as breaking down your onset and rhyme, breaking down your syllables, compound words, all of that was a good refresher for me as a teacher, and then helping them to understand the reading process.
I love hearing what you're saying through your perspective, because that's exactly right. And that's one of the things as district leadership we had to sit down and reflect on, a practice of, are we being explicit and systematic enough with our teaching so that we aren't relying on picture cues?
Well, and I know even as like myself, to refer back to reading instruction, that was not how we were taught growing up. So when we go back to, well, when I was in elementary, this is how we learned it, is not as effective anymore for these students and these kids. And the one thing I really enjoyed about the foundational literacy skills was that it was so structured and so scripted that no matter where the kids came from, whether they were coming from LSSD or another school or another district within Tennessee, you knew what they had been exposed to. They were all going to be having the same instructional content, which was important because we'd found that out in third grade that, you know, moving schools, being very transient, it was like they were starting over because one teacher taught it differently than another, whereas this was so structured and so scripted. Everyone's teaching it the exact same way. So they're going to come in and pick right up.
That's a very compelling thought for leaders across the state who may not have invested in the foundational skills units or sounds first activities. So that's very compelling.
They all need to be on this for sure.
Did you find that the training itself grew you in any particular area personally more than another, or anything related to you such as the research, or was just the whole comprehensive training good?
You know, the Scarborough's rope was like the big foundation of the understanding of this whole reading process, and that's something we'd always been exposed to as educators through, you know, college and our own research. But one of the areas that really got me was our ESL population. And, you know, we've always thought about it, of them being separate. ESL needs to be taught separately than, you know, our regular English learners. And throughout that whole process, we learned we can build off of that foundation skill from their previous home language, that it doesn't need to be here's Spanish and here's English, or whatever language they're coming from. We can build off of whatever foundations they have in order to quickly get those students up to date with all of our other population. So that was a really big moment.
Okay. Any other ahas about how you taught reading before versus how you would teach it now?
The biggest one is being very explicit in the teaching and very repetitive in it. Before it was, here's a word, let's read it, and the more that we see this word, then they'll just know it, versus what are the letters in this word, what sounds do they make, how can I break it down, what's my syllables, rhyming words with that, what other words fit into this word family. That type of instruction was very different than what we had been taught before, And I was guilty of this as well as a reading teacher, that it was just post words up around the room, and the more they looked at them and saw them, then they would just know them. And that's not how that works at all. So.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Yes, and so with the K2 skills units, we have a very systematic way of starting with sounds first and then building on phonics, and then up into second grade with advanced phonics. Mm-hmm. So kids are well versed in syllabication, and it doesn't matter how many syllables a word has, they're able to decode them all. And so this program really does work because of its systematic approach. So I think we will see more kids in third grade being proficient in reading and less gaps by third grade now because of this curriculum.
I did like the fact too, we also learned through that training of not teaching the alphabetic principle in order. Like, we don't need to go A all the way to Z, but teaching it in ways that they can quickly recognize words and create words at an earlier level. That was another big aha moment of, oh, you mean I don't have to start at A and work my way down the alphabet, but now my kids now have, in a 2-week time period here, learned the letters A, S, and T, and can make words like at, sat. They're recognizing, oh, the B says B, so I can make now the word bat, and quickly creating those words that they're going to see in their readers and writers.
Building on their language.
Yes.
And so letters are introduced as sounds, and those sounds come from the language that they can easily reproduce and speak and so forth. Okay, so can you talk a little bit more about how you've applied this knowledge from the Reading 360 training to your instruction this year with PreK?
So we are just getting started here in PreK. But the first thing I've used through the Reading 360 is making sure that we don't just identify a letter, but we're working on what sound does it make. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them come in with the old mindset of, well, A says apple. No, A doesn't say apple, A says a. And so now I can point to a letter and we'll say, what does that say? It says a, or this one says k, so that they're able to quickly pick up those beginning sounds, and like you can see up here, they can apply them to what they know. So with their writing already, we're 2 weeks into school, and they were able to write colors are everywhere, because they know those sounds and what else they hear them from. The other thing, we started our foundational skills today, and so snatching the beginning sounds and the ending sounds, and they were making connections with their names of, oh, that word has the same beginning sound as this friend's name, or that one has the same beginning sound as this friend's name. And so recognizing that friend's name starts with this letter, so that means this word must also start with that letter. And so those were big connections already.
Awesome. And again, research says that capitalizing on students' names is the way to go because it's personal, meaningful to them, and that they will be able to recognize those sounds quickly. And again, it goes back to language in that they have those sounds in their language. They don't necessarily have the names of letters in language of what they speak every day. So it makes perfect sense. You've talked about the importance of foundational skills. Is there anything else that you might say to a teacher, K2 or third grade and up, about the importance of foundational skills in the early grades?
It makes a world of a difference. And like not just coming from third grade, but I came from third grade math. So reading was never really where I focused my attention on, even in third grade. But I will say, like, the foundation skills that they learned here will help in all content areas. We look at math, like the word problems, and how they can't use their brains to solve those word problems because they're spending so much time trying to comprehend what they're reading. And having this foundational skills to be able to decode those words and pick up on those key concepts will then quickly help in that area, you know, with your science and social studies. It's going to help them be able to understand the content more as they get older if they're not focusing so much on guessing at what a word is, but they truly understand and know it because they're able to read it without alphabetic principle.
Perfect. So any other words of advice to teachers, to administrators, or even maybe districts who have not bought into the foundational skills units or sounds first activities? What advice might you give to them when they are contemplating starting these in their own district?
The biggest advice I could say is having a unit, an instructional unit that all teachers can use that is across the board proven to be effective is worth it. I mean, this is, we've seen our students moving across the states, across counties, across school districts, and to lose that time that they've already lost so much time with COVID and quarantines and that, but to have to lose even more instructional time because they're learning new strategies every time they go into a classroom is so detrimental that we need something standard and uniform across the state of Tennessee. I mean, it's just, that's a must. And this program is it. And it allows the teachers, it's one less thing that we have to go out and research and try and find. The material is already there for you. It's very easy to implement, very quick to implement. We broke ours up into like 3 different time periods throughout the day. We just kind of squeeze it in. The kids think it's a game. They don't think that, you know, it's sit and be quiet. Like they're doing the hand motions with it. They're interacting with it. So they love to do it. So it's a real quick buy-in.
Yes. I'm glad you added that because they do love it.
They do.
And it is very adaptable to the day,
yes.
Whatever times you need. So perfect.
You know, at the end of the day, we're getting ready to go out for recess. And I said, hold on, we got one more, you know, foundational skills to do. And they went, yes! You know, they were giving up recess time in order to do this. And that says so much. Like at this age, they went all day, they've worked all day, and they still want to do more.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Carrie.
thank
Love
you.
It. Love it. You brought